Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem made an announcement last week that has caused a bit of a stir.
It has something to do with Real ID. Here she is.
Hi, I'm Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of Homeland Security. If you plan on traveling, we need your help to prevent delays and to prove your identity. Get a Real ID. Starting May 7th, you will need a Real ID to travel by air or to visit federal buildings in the United States.
Now, actually, some of the backlash here is coming from people on the right. Congressman Thomas Massie, Republican, for instance, wrote on X, "Real ID isn't needed and won't stop terrorists from hijacking planes. Most of the 9/11 hijackers held Saudi, UAE, Egyptian, or Lebanese passports. Real ID is a national standard and a database of IDs that's primarily a tool for control of Americans. Trump shouldn't enforce it."
Now, per the TSA, 81% of travelers who go through airport checkpoints are already compliant. Congress had passed the Real ID Act back in 2005, which then allowed for there to be a federal standard on state IDs, but this measure was supposed to go into effect in 2008. It never did. TSA spokesman Carter Langston defended the initiative, writing, "Identity verification is a linchpin in security, and we will make sure that passengers are verified as being who they say they are before they can go beyond the checkpoint."
Well, I am very frustrated to hear this is going into effect. Now, of course, most people already have a Real ID if you had to update your driver's license anytime recently, depending on what state you live in. They've already made your driver's license Real ID compliant, so probably this isn't going to affect you in that way. It will affect you in having your license now be in this database, and which I know a lot of libertarian people who have serious privacy concerns, Bofta, about whether hackers will actually be able to penetrate that database and get your information. And then Thomas Massie's point is very well taken, that what this is not, again, we're doing security theater, we're doing still. However, 20 years later, 25 years later, we're still doing 9/11-based security theater, doing things that are more restrictive, more difficult, more burdensome, more inconvenient for Americans, because national security and safety, with no shred of evidence, this is going to help protect against terrorism or anything of that nature. The TSA itself is the textbook example of this. The entire agency should be abolished. Paging Dr. Elon Musk to the Doge operating room. I want TSA gone. It is a abhorrent waste of money and inefficient and doesn't contribute to our safety whatsoever.
Well, I'm not going to go that far with TSA, but I do agree with you that the Real ID, I think that it wasn't needed. First off, if you look at just the possibility that in time this could be used at the voting booth. This could be also used to get your Social Security check, right? So I think that in time, there's challenges with Real ID that are going to keep pressing on. I think that also, if you look at the cost that this required, that's part of the reason, Robby, why so many folks were against this, why it took so long to become law. It was an estimated back by the federal government in 2007, 2008, that this was going to cost $11 billion to implement. So Doge, take a look at that. They would have had a field day. $11 billion to implement. So if we think about sometimes some of the things that are going into law, I think we need to think about how much is this actually going to cost for states to, make sure that everyone has this and it's implemented properly, and you have the processes and the systems and all of that kind of thing. So I think that that's two major points that I have with it. As far as TSA, we need TSA, Robby. We need TSA.
No, we don't.
We need TSA.
We don't need it at all.
Folks,
we should get rid of it.
Next time you go to the airport and you don't see TSA, you're going to be like, how are we going to make sure that everything is safe?
By locking the cockpit doors.
Oh, come on.
Prevents.
Oh, come
no,
on. But let's be serious.
No, I'm being completely serious. They don't. What, you think the plane isn't safe to fly on because you have a hairspray bottle that's over 4 ounces? It's nonsense. It's utter because we have to take off our shoes. Oh, we took off our shoes and belts. Now we're safe.
Well, they're getting better at
idiotic ritual.
They're getting better at actually the process. So if you go to different airports,
don't catch
different airports,
knives, and also you can assemble. I mean, I don't want to get this video banned.
Let's not give people ideas.
They sell everything you need to make an incendiary device once you've already gotten past the security.
So look, so TSA is a whole other issue, right? We could create a total topic on
alcohol
rising
and lighters.
on rising about the TSA. But Real ID, I think there's a lot of challenges. I also think when you think of the House bill that's also happening simultaneously that is related to voters and having to require another, proof of citizenship. I think that's a whole nother way of voter suppression. So I think when you have these things happening, it reminds us of the poll tax. It reminds us of what people had to do in order to vote. And so I think when you get into the Real ID mix and you get into the House bill that's currently, going back and forth, I think that we get into some serious waters when it comes to, are we working to get people who are not only minorities and disenfranchising folks, but also those who are unhoused, those who have gone through national disasters, can't find their birth certificate. I think you run into some serious territory when you start to go backwards in how we treat voting and identification in this country.
Yeah, I just don't want to have to move throughout the country like it's some militarized zone, like under some communist state, where you have to there's checkpoints everywhere and barbed wire, and you have to show some kind of ID. I mean, that's a little bit of hyperbole and dramatizing it, but that's the way we're moving if we do this. And that's not. And again, they'll say it's for safety, it's for national security, but they'll never demonstrate or prove why that is the case. Yeah. How does this actually make us safer?
I'm agreeing with you on that one. Yeah, I think on a rare moment we're in agreement.
Okay, but the TSA too.
No, that's another day.
Hear me out on this.
That's another day.
The planes are safe because they used to allow them to be taken captive. Like, you know that, right? Like, until 9/11, it was standard. If somebody tries to hijack the airplane, you just let them do it because they were going to fly it to Cuba. There was tons of plane hijackings throughout the 60s and 70s, and I think even into the 80s, because they were hijacked by crazy activist people. Then the 9/11 hijacking happens. They fly the plane into a building. We'll never let that happen again because we lock the cockpit doors and you can't take the actual pilots hostage. And you can't blow up.
I think there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes.
That's what I have to say.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that you and I are not always privy to, where TSA is helping out. I do think we need TSA, and I think it's a big overreach to say eliminate TSA. So again, we agreed at least on one part of this topic, but not the other. So we'll get back to it another day.
You don't miss the era when you could just show up to the airport.
I don't think I've ever shown up. I mean, and you're young.
Well, now you have to
I don't think I've ever just
you have to get there
shown
2.5 hours in advance to do this song and dance where they
you gotta
abuse
pack
you
better.
and
Pack
sexually
better.
assault you as you move through.
Overreach. They're
the ones overreaching, quite literally.
They do not. I am not. I know that there are things that happen, but I think to say that they're always doing sexual assault is again another. That's an overreach. That's stretching across. That's stretching across a little bit too much. I won't go that far. You need to pack better, Robby. That's what it is. You need to pack better. All right, let's move on to our next topic coming up. President Trump hosts one of his biggest critics for dinner. Did he win comedian Bill Maher over? We'll see. That's up next.